Bending things around the horn of the anvil is pretty straightforward and it works pretty well, but it is not always ideal. Welcome back to Black Bear Forge and the tool of the day. The solution is quite simple. It's to have something that is more cylindrical than the horn of the anvil, which tapers in funny directions and the radius isn't the same all the way around it. And to do that, we have cones. And cones come in various sizes, also called mandrels or cone mandrels quite typically. As full-size floor mandrels go, this one's relatively small, and it's just the ideal size in my smaller shop. It stands 42 inches tall and has a base that's about 12 inches diameter. I managed to acquire a bigger one once that was probably about 5 feet tall, had a nice tong groove in the side, and I'll explain that in a minute. Much bigger base, and it just didn't fit anywhere, took up too much space. This one is small enough and light enough, I can kind of stick it in the corner and it's out of the way if I don't need it, because I don't use it that much. But boy, when you want a mandrel, it is really handy to have one. These are cast iron, or cast ductile iron probably, and they are hollow, so they aren't as heavy as they look. Although this one probably weighs 125 pounds. I wouldn't want to lift it, but they are really quite easy to just roll out of the way, especially if you don't have a dirt floor. And you can get these out of your way and reposition them, and they're just not a problem anymore. Well, a full-size mandrel that sits on the floor is really nice. It's sort of impractical for most people. Those are getting harder and harder to find, and people that have them are charging more and more money. There are some still being made new, and if you're lucky you might be able to track one down, but shipping would be quite a bit. So you have to really want one before you buy one and have it shipped. But keep your eyes out at farm sales, auctions, estate sales, things like that. You might get lucky and find one. That's how I found mine. So the solution to the problem is to have a smaller mandrel like this one. This one just fits in the hardy hole of the anvil. It's about 4.5 inches at the base, stands 13 inches tall, and is quite a nice mandrel. I think it's, again, cast ductile iron. This probably came from Pay Tool. My guess is Centaur Forge, Blacksmiths Depot, any of the other bigger blacksmithing suppliers are going to have something similar to this. This one actually has a tong groove. The tong groove is there, so if you have a ring and you're trying to hold the ring on here, the tip of the tongs will fit down inside that groove so that they are out of the way and don't put a lump in your ring. And that's kind of handy, although rarely do I really worry about it. I'm more likely to be forging a ring on the end of something, and I've got a handle that way. I also have this nice little one, which is a lot easier to use in most cases. It's only 6 inches tall, 2.5 inches round. I picked this up from Pay Tool, a year or so ago. It looks like it was $75 then. It's machined with a welded on hardy stem, and they had them in different size hardy stems. Another very useful tool. A lot lighter. This one's kind of heavy to move around. And it just drops in the hardy hole just like that does. And even if you don't have a hardy hole in your anvil, you could probably make a tube socket that sits next to your anvil, or you could clamp this in your post vise. There really isn't a lot to say about cone mandrels. They're an extremely handy thing to have if you're doing lots of round rings. Because they're perfectly symmetrical, they might not be ideal for doing scrolls, but you might find some use for it. But if you're making fireplace pokers, trivets, things like that, it's really handy to be able to make a perfectly round ring. Remember, they taper, so if you're working a ring, your ring will have a taper. You need to flip it over every now and then to keep from widening a ring out and making it into a cone itself, because that's generally not the idea. If you're just starting out, I don't think a cone mandrel is a requirement unless you don't have a regular anvil with a horn on it. If you've just got a makeshift anvil, some sort of anvil-shaped object, I think one of those little cone mandrels is well worth the $75, and you might be able to find a found item that is cone-shaped that would allow you to do the same thing, and then you could put it in your vise, or you could mount it on a separate stump. Lots of ways you could figure that out and find a way to use something like that. And that would be a good substitute for not having a horn on your anvil. Well, I hope that was useful. Give it a thumbs up if you can. Hit that subscribe button. Get out to the shop. Make something. Stay safe. Wear your safety glasses. We'll see you later.